Hello everyone and welcome to our latest Twitch TV stream at twitch.tv/DDOstream. Don't forget to follow us to be notified for when we're going live. This week's Weekly Wednesday Lunchtime Livestream is a bit of a unique one. We're taking a look at the Swashbuckler, single weapon fighting and more coming in Update 22, which is arriving in June. Exact day yet to be announced, but stay tuned, it should be here fairly soon. Also with me, I have a guest this week. Say hello, Steelstar.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going pretty well.
My understanding is you guys are basically working, well actually I know you are because I see you from across the room, but you guys are working pretty hard, putting the finishing touches in Update 22 and making sure this thing is just about ready to get out the door.
Yeah, we're finishing up last details, making slight adjustments.
Nice, nice. Just say hello to the chat as well. I just want to make sure you guys can hear us all okay in the chat room. Let me know if you run into any issues. We are on Lamania this week. Lamania is currently closed to the public, but not closed to us. We are special snowflakes. And so I've brought my Swashbuckler, Swashbuckler, out of up on Lamania so we can take a look at our Swashbuckler tree. Just to start off with, the Swashbuckler is a Bard Prestige Enhancement, and is the third Prestige Enhancement available to the Bard. In general, what's the philosophy on the Swashbuckler here?
The philosophy on the Swashbuckler is that they're a fast and nimble fighter. They fight with light weapons, in light armor, and mitigate their damage by avoiding the damage outright as opposed to taking damage and then mitigating how much they take.
Sort of a classic trope that you see not just in fantasy, but other areas as well. Sort of the one-handed fighter guy sort of cutting through the crowd, doing insults, and fighting quickly.
Yeah, definitely. And this being the same update that we're doing Epic Three Barrel Cove, there's definitely some pirate and a little bit of duelist influence on this tree.
Absolutely. So let's get started with the core enhancements on the Swashbuckler. Just for those who are watching in our chat room, feel free to ask a question in chat. We will set some time aside at the end here to really go into more Q&A with you folks as well. But if something comes up during our stream that you have a question about, feel free to let us know, and we will endeavor to get it answered. Specifically, if it's about the Swashbuckler or single weapon fighting and that kind of thing, then we may be able to take a few general questions as well at the end of the stream. All right, so the Swashbuckler. Let's start with the core enhancements here of Tier 1. Confidence. It is a plus 1% dodge, plus 1 reflex save, and plus 1 to the max dex bonus of your armor per Swashbuckler core ability that you have. So that gives you up to a plus 6% dodge, reflex, and max dex bonus. And the max dex bonus, for those who aren't familiar, your armor has a certain cap that you can get from your dexterity bonus. So if you have a really high dexterity build, which many Swashbucklers presumably will be, then you're going to want to have as much of a max dex bonus on your armor as you can so that you can take full advantage of that dexterity bonus.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good starting place for the Swashbuckler and the kind of fighting style they have, but it's also a set of effects that spell singers or war chanters might also want, dodge, reflex saves. So it's a good ability to splash into if you happen to want those things, but even if you aren't necessarily playing a Swashbuckler.
Yep, absolutely. And just to say how you actually get access to the Swashbuckler tree, one level in Bard will get you there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, let's take a look at the second core enhancement here. This is Swashbuckling. It is a stance, and it's one of the really core concepts of the Swashbuckler here. You'll get 1% double strike and double shot, as well as plus 1 to the enhancement bonus of the weapon in your main hand. Swashbuckling requires a finessable or a thrown weapon in your main hand. Finessable weapons are the same that you could have for your finesse feat, so that'd be, you see a lot of like short swords and rapiers and
all of your light weapons and your rapier.
Yeah. Wielding a buckler or nothing in your offhand, and wielding light armor or no armor. Druids cannot swashbuckle while in animal forms, and for Warforged and Bladeforged, you must be using either the composite or mithril body feats, the lighter body feats for the Warforged. So let's talk a little bit about the offhand idea of Swashbuckler. This is a buckler or nothing in your offhand. So one weapon in your main hand, single weapon fighting. We'll get into the single weapon fighting stats and stuff later, but the Swashbuckler tree is meant to be complementary to single weapon fighting.
Right. The feats of single weapon fighting, while not exclusive to bards, the feats can be taken by anybody, provided you meet the requirements. They are meant to be complementary to this tree in that they have very similar requirements. It's a weapon in your main hand, and in this case, a buckler in your offhand. Single weapon fighting feats don't innately allow you to use a buckler, but there's an enhancement further up in this tree that will let you get the benefits of single weapon fighting while using a buckler.
Right. So I guess that's actually a bit of a question. Why would you not want to have a buckler in your offhand?
Reasons you would not want to have a buckler in your offhand. There are abilities further up the tree, mostly in the swashbuckling style pair of abilities in tier 3 and 4 that provide certain benefits for having nothing in your offhand or unlocking the ability to use a orb or a rune arm in your offhand.
Okay, so for special builds or specific builds that maybe, like say a rune arm build or orb build, something like that.
Right. If you were trying to do some casting while also doing some melee, you might want an orb in your offhand. And if you were splashing Artificer in here at all, you might want the rune arm. The rune arm was sort of meant to represent some classic swashbucklers that have pistols in one hand and a melee weapon in the other. We don't really have pistols in DDO, so that's sort of where the rune arm concept came into this.
Yep, sounds good. In addition, while swashbuckling, the following weapons will receive competence bonuses to their critical profile. So, dagger, short sword, or throwing dagger is a +1 threat range, and what that basically means for those who don't know is it helps determine whether you critically hit. So, on a roll, let's say a weapon has a threat range of 18 to 20. If you roll 18, 19, or 20, you will roll again to confirm that critical hit, and if you do, you will score a critical hit, which does a lot more damage. So this will increase that range and therefore increase the probability of scoring a critical hit.
Right, and the different ranges on here bring most of these weapons to about the same critical range and multiplier. Light picks a bit of a weird, odd one out,
Sure.
which is why it only gets one range as opposed to the two it would normally get.
And that's because it has a particularly wide crit
It has a
profile?
particularly wide multiplier
Right. Oh, okay.
compared to the other things here.
Sure. So just to get through the tree, light mace, light hammer, sickle dart, shuriken, throwing axe and throwing hammer +2 threat range, +1 multiplier. Kukri and rapier is a +1 multiplier. Hand axe +2 to your range, and a light pick +1 to your range. I know
I'm
this
seeing
is,
a question from Forgettable NPC pop up that
Sure.
I've heard come up a couple times. So, speaking of rune arms, do you have to splash Artificer for the proficiency? Yes, you still do have to splash for the proficiency. You're not getting rune arm proficiency through the Swashbuckler tree itself.
Gotcha. And swashbuckling is a stance, so it is something you will presumably toggle on at the very least, probably at the start of your game session and whenever you might need to retoggle your stances.
Right.
Yep. How does it work with, say, other stances you might have? I'm thinking things like combat expertise or
In
some of that kind of thing.
In early builds of Lamania for the Update 22 Lamania cycle, it was classified as a defensive stance, which would have made it exclusive with some other stances. We've since dropped that requirement. It may not be that way on the current Lamania, but in a future build it will be. So right now it's not exclusive to any other stances. You just have to meet the requirements and you get the benefits.
Okay. The third tree of the or tier of the core enhancement for the swashbuckler is Uncanny Dodge. This is a very popular feat that you see people take, particularly if they're into their dodge. You get the Uncanny Dodge feat, and a passive swashbuckling grants an additional 1% double strike, 1% double shot, and +1 damage. Uncanny Dodge feat, I'm trying to go off the top of my head. It's a certain amount of time you get, what is it, 6%?
Yeah,
Is that
it's a
right?
very brief, large boost to dodge
Yep.
that rogues and barbarians usually get. So this is something if you're the kind of bard that wants to dodge attacks using dodge, it's relatively useful.
I I guess I probably should have called this one up as well, but since this is a big part of the tree, and some people may not be familiar with the concept, what is double strike and double shot?
Right. Double strike and double shot are percent chances that when you make an attack using melee weapons in the case of double strike, ranged weapons in the case of double shot, for it to proc an extra attack.
Okay, and that would be just whatever you have in your weapon. So let's say you have
Right.
a rapier that does damage and additional fire damage. It would have a certain percent to do all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, moving to the fourth tier of the core enhancements. It's Panache. I believe I said that right. Requires 20 points spent in the tree and Bard level 12. So we're probably getting outside of the splash range here. Up to
Right.
core 3 was Bard level 6. So now we're into a Bard level 12 for the fourth one here. While Swashbuckling, you have an additional 1% double strike and double shot plus 1 damage, and the weapon in your main hand gets an additional plus 1 to its enhancement bonus, which is 2 hit there.
Right. A little less shiny than some of the others, but it's still some pretty useful stats there.
Ultimately, a lot of these things are stacking additions to damage, and that stuff multiplies with your critical hits in that as well. So it's more than just one additional damage. It can be exponentially quite a bit bigger. So, number tier 5 here, roll with maybe exponential isn't the right phrase, but it does multiply quite nicely. Tier 5, roll with the punches, requires Bard level 18, 30 points spent. While swashbuckling, which means while you have the swashbuckling stance active, you gain an additional 1% double strike and shot, plus 1 damage, plus 5 to your dodge cap, and the slippery mine feat. Dodge cap, can you explain that a little bit?
Dodge cap, when you're wearing armor, your armor caps the maximum amount of dodge that you can get. Adding to the dodge cap raises that cap. So if you're wearing light armor, which as a swashbuckler you may want to do, the dodge cap would raise the maximum amount of dodge you can have.
Sure. And the slippery mine feat is, if I recall, otherwise a rogue ability that allows you to get free of mind control effects.
Right. When you make a saving throw against enchantment effects? Yes, enchantment effects. You get a second saving throw. So you're much more likely to save on enchantment effects.
Sure.
This is something that swashbucklers in pen and paper got, so we thought it was appropriate to include here.
Sure. Let me just take a quick look at chat to see what else we need. Are we getting any new rune arms specific for Bard abilities? Are you making any rune arms either now or in the future with an idea toward sort of, I don't know, what would you say?
Yeah, we can answer that.
Yep.
The rune arm in Epic 3-Barrel Cove is not specifically keyed towards swashbucklers, although it would certainly work if you were an artificer, bard, multi-class. In the future, we may consider doing a rune arm specifically geared towards swashbucklers. It would require a new rune arm spell, which is not. It would require a sonic rune arm spell, which is, I think, typically what people are asking for when they ask for a bard-specific rune arm. So it's a little more complex than a standard rune arm, but
Sure.
It's certainly a possibility.
Sure. All right. Let's wrap up here our core enhancements with evasive maneuvers. This requires Bard level 20 and 40 points spent in the tree. It is plus 2 charisma, plus 2 dexterity, and while swashbuckling you get evasion in addition to 1% double strike, 1% double shot, plus 1 damage, and the weapon in your main hand gets an additional plus 1 to its enhancement bonus. This is a way for pure bards to get the evasion feat without having to essentially splash a rogue or monk.
Yep. Yeah,
Although you don't get it
evasion's
to level 20,
considered
but, yeah.
widely to be one of the best abilities out there, so definitely something useful for the kind of dodgy, evasive bard being created through this tree.
Yep. All right, let's start looking at the details as we go up the tree here. At the first tier is On Your Toes. This is a straight up plus 1 dodge and presumably goes, plus
goes
2
right
and
up to
plus
3.
3 dodge. Yep. Blow by blow, make an attack with an extra critical threat range that deals extra sonic damage and reduces your threat with nearby enemies. Sonic damage scales with spell powers. So I'm imagining, especially let's say you're rolling up a pure bard and you're really maximizing your sonic spell power or universal spell power. This is really going to synthesize with that and give you quite a bit of extra sonic damage.
Oh yeah, that's a recurring theme throughout this tree is where sonic damage is dealt, generally speaking. It scales with your sonic spell power, meaning if you really do invest a lot into that, some of these abilities gain a lot more punch.
Okay, and what's the one is for ranged and one is for melee, depending
Separate
on
one for ranged and melee.
what you want to do. And the idea is some of this swashbuckling is really going to mesh well with thrown weapons builds.
Yes, there's quite a bit of ranged weapon support throughout the tree.
Yeah. Yep. I just remember. I seem to remember thrown dagger.
Specifically thrown, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are
So
some abilities in here that could work well with ranged weapons in general, but the specific focus was on thrown weapons.
sure. Here's one of my favorites. Insults. Choose an
Yes.
insult that debuffs the saves of nearby enemies. Appalling diatribe. I don't know what an appalling diatribe would be. Perhaps the one Samuel Jackson does in Pulp Fiction? I don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's essentially with all three of these, you're insulting your enemies, and all the enemies nearby take a debuff to a particular save. You pick one of the three.
Right.
Can be very useful for either attacks that have saves that monsters need to make, or if you're happen to be, say, a spell singer that wants to splash in here and debuff enemies' saves so that your spells or songs land better.
You know, one of the things that bards have always been pretty good at is, say, like crowd control and
Right.
meshing with other things that might be going on in the party. So let's say you really need to lower the mob's will save. You can
Mm-hmm.
use cutting jibes to really reduce that. I'm trying to think. If you go up to tier 3 here, that's actually pretty. It costs less spell points, and then it has reduces the cooldown as well.
Right,
Correct?
so
Yeah.
you can use it more often and for cheaper. And since it's an AOE and applies to the enemy, it really benefits your entire party.
Sure. So forgettable NPC asks in chat, what resists Sonic?
Oh,
Not a lot. I mean, that's
not
part of the
much.
reason why it's one of the more popular sort of elemental
Mhm.
things out there. But I'm pretty sure there are a couple that maybe do, but I can't think of them off the top of my head here. Yeah. All right, so let's move back to the tier 1. Again, this is an earlier Lamania build from really 2 weeks ago, so some of these icons will have been fixed up. Tavern Shanties, +1 Bard Song, and then presumably that gives you +2 and +3 Bard Songs
Yep,
as you
goes all
go
the way
up
up to
the
three.
thing.
Generally useful.
Yep. And then finally, Limber Up, +1 to Balance, Swim, and Tumble. It should be noted that, actually, we'll get into that, I guess, with single weapon fighting feat, but there may be reasons why you want to increase your balance here.
Yep.
So,
The third rank of this ability also has an extra effect of when you tumble, you gain a +3 save against traps for 6 seconds. It has a 12-second cooldown, so you can't do it continuously. But if you're looking to get through a trap and you don't have a rogue nearby to disable it, you may want to try tumbling through it. You'll have better saves.
just to go back here, I knew our chat would come through. Golems resist Sonic. So there you go.
Oh, yes.
Yep. All right, moving to tier 2. On Point. This is a 12-second cooldown, costs 10 spell points, and it allows you to make a melee attack with a +1 weapon modifier, +4 critical threat range, and then have a -1 critical multiplier. What that means, let's say weapon does 1 to 6 damage, 1d6 damage. That's, say, the base weapon damage of it. So this will actually make +1 additional of that, so it essentially makes it a 2d6. And then finally, +4 to your. Did I say that right? Yeah, I think so, right?
I think so.
Yep. +4 critical threat range, so it makes it much easier to score a critical hit, but does reduce the critical multiplier a little bit to sort of balance that out.
Right. It's an ability as you rank it up that threat range goes up. If you are using a weapon that has an on crit ability, the third rank of this, when you use this attack, is a near guaranteed crit. So if you're in a situation where you'd really like to proc the on crit effect on that enemy, you may want to use it.
Right, right. And that's an effect that you would actually basically put in your hotbar and cycle through your attacks as you wanted to.
Yes.
Tier 2, Deflect Arrows. You gain the benefits of the Deflect Arrows feat, which knocks aside one incoming projectile that would have struck you every 6 seconds. This cannot be trained at the same time as the Ranger Tempest Deflect Arrows ability as well, because they're basically the same.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a useful way to, especially if you're the kind of person who, if you're being, just trying to think, I don't know, a good quest that's got a lot of mobs with range attack. This is a particularly nice thing for that. So.
And I'm thinking any of those, for instance, like low-level Necropolis dungeons that have a lot of archer skeletons all over the place. They're not particularly deadly on their own, but they add up fairly quickly. So,
Yep.
ignoring damage is usually useful.
Yeah. Let's see. Moving to the next one, fast movement. You run 5% faster for every 3 bard levels you possess. So,
Yes.
you could get yourself not insignificant. I'm thinking, plus 30, right? Because at level 18, you'd be plus 30 percent. And do you know
hmm
that that's the same basic run speed, the, what is it, enhancement bonus that you see with, say, the speed
It's
ability or that kind of thing?
no. It's in fact a fully stacking bonus. It's similar in nature to the barbarian or monk movement speed.
Oh, okay.
So haste and other effect based sources of movement speed do stack with it.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a really nice
it's
one.
very nice.
Sword Dance. While swashbuckling, when enemies miss you in combat, you deal 1d10 sonic damage per bard level. And again, this scales with spell power. This is probably particularly something that our uh, high AC, high dodge builds will be able to really utilize.
Yeah, like we said earlier, Bard tends to the defenses of a swashbuckler revolve around not getting hit. So you have a lot of dodge. Bards can also cast, blur and displacement, a lot of things that can prevent you from getting hit. And when enemies try to attack you and miss due to any of these reasons, it procs this ability doing damage.
Sure. And finally, in our tier 2, action boost. Basic bonus to either double strike or double shot, depending on what, again, whether you're focusing mostly on ranged or not.
Right.
So,
This isn't a relatively common action boost. I believe druids are the only one that get double strike right now, and nobody has double shot at the moment. So, and that's one of the abilities, like I said earlier in here, that applies more generally to ranged. If you had a uh, ranged but non-thrown bard.
and it does require Bard level 2, so this may be something that some of our splash builds might
Right.
want to take advantage of. So,
Definitely.
tier 3 here, elegant footwork. When enemies miss you while swashbuckling, they have a 20% chance to be knocked down with no save. Wow. So
Yep.
that's just a straight up basically roll 1 to 4 on a d20 and they're knocked down.
Right.
So,
It's meant to sort of represent a swashbuckler sort of moving to the left when their enemy is charging at them and causing them to trip over themselves.
nice. Very cool. Do I guess I hate to bring this up. Maybe I shouldn't, but it doesn't work on raid bosses, right?
No, no, no.
Okay.
Ew.
Because you know someone's going to test that one out right away. Yeah. Swashbuckling style. Select your style: open hand, buckler, orb, or rune arm. Now this gets to what you're talking about earlier. It gives you specific benefits based on sort of the way you are building your
Right.
swashbuckler.
So the four that are in here, the first one is the open hand one, Dashing Scoundrel, which is while swashbuckling with nothing in your offhand, you gain +1 damage per 5 character levels, and 10% double strike and double shot. And this one is a little bit more raw power than the other three, but it's partially because you're giving up ever having anything in that offhand. You're fighting purely
Sure.
with a one-handed weapon in your main hand and nothing in your offhand, and so you're getting some substantial raw power out of it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Skirmisher basically is the one for the buckler. While swashbuckling with a buckler in your offhand, you get 10% dodge, and you can use a buckler and still benefit from single weapon fighting line of feats, which,
Right.
like I say, we'll get to shortly here.
Yep.
And then finally, there's one for a rune arm, which lets you basically use a rune arm and continue to be in your swashbuckling stance. And same with the orb. The Arcane Marauder allows you to have an orb in your offhand and continue to use the swashbuckling stance as well. It does require magical training on that one.
Right, and the rune arm one requires the 2 levels of artificer that gives you artificer rune arm use.
Right, right. Okay. All right, next up, Resonant Arms. While swashbuckling, the finessable or thrown weapon in your main hand deals an additional 1d6 sonic damage on critical hits, which scales with spell power. I sense a trend here. This all scales with spell power, huh?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Sonic spell power.
This is just base raw damage on critical hits.
Yes, which as we'll get to when we get up to the tier 5, you're going to be critting often. So very, very useful.
Different tack. Choose to use your dexterity, intelligence, charisma for damage with weapon attacks. I've seen
Yes.
already on the forums and that a lot of people really focusing on this one, particularly with a straight bard, for example. You may
Mhm.
well want to use your charisma to damage because you can also boost that for UMD and the basic bard abilities that you have as well.
Yeah,
So,
the addition of this ability was very much the result of player feedback on Lamania. When we introduced the Swashbuckler tree to Lamania, one of the things players consistently said is we would love to have the ability to do charisma to damage or dexterity to damage through here. Intelligence to damage was added partially because some pen and paper swashbucklers had that ability, and partially to support the cannoneer, artificer, bard splashes.
right. Yeah, those Artie Bard splashes could be quite nice because they can
Mhm.
also say use insightful damage and all that with
Right.
their
Well, yeah, they
intelligence
could use
bonus.
insightful strikes, the spell,
Yep.
to get intelligence to attack, and then use this ability to get intelligence to damage.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, just for the purposes here, I'm going to take charisma. Then we also have, which is common in many of our trees, just a straight choose a bonus to either charisma or dexterity to give you an extra, if I recall correctly here, 2 points, right? So an extra +1 you could have
Yep,
on your
plus one
total
at
bonus.
each of these ranks.
Yeah. All right, looking at Tier 4, on the mark, passive +1 to attack rolls to confirm critical hits and damage on critical hits before weapon multipliers. So, and that's how critical hits work. So once you do roll within that critical threat range, you'll make another roll to confirm a critical hit. That has to be a basic hit on the monster, and then, or the creature, and then whatever kind of damage you'll do will be boosted by a +1 for your critical hit. So maybe
Yep.
it's weapon ×2 or ×3, for example, and this will give you an extra plus to that one there. So, or actually, no, that's not actually right. Let me
No, no, no,
correct
it's
that.
it's
Yeah,
just additional damage when you do
yeah,
crit.
yeah. So exactly. So it'd be 1d6 +1 before weapon
Right.
multipliers. Yeah, and you can boost that up to +3.
Mhm.
All right, swashbuckling style 2. Let me actually, just for the purposes here, make sure I take it. Improve your swashbuckling style. So what is this? What does this do?
So this
Oh,
is
here
an
we go.
upgrade to
Yep.
the swashbuckling style you picked in Tier 4. So there's one for open hand, there's one for bucklers, there's one for orbs, and there's one for rune arms. The open hand and buckler versions are activated attacks, whereas the rune arm and orb ones are passive abilities.
And for the passive ones, it deals additional damage with the, say, the rune arm, just an extra
Yes.
1d6 sonic damage, and with the orb, +20 sonic spell power.
Yeah, the orb
Uh,
is meant
yep.
is, as we said earlier, sort of to support casting bards, and so it's just extra raw sonic spell power. The rune arm one acts a little bit like your weapon imbue from uh, just generally having a rune arm equipped. Unlike that, this one I don't believe it actually says it in the text, but it does scale with sonic spell power.
Okay.
So that can be really useful to have every hit have a scaling sonic spell power
Yeah.
proc. So,
Let me take a quick look at chat.
all right.
Let's see. Do I have any questions here in chat that I'm running through? Let's see. Is there any way we can get rune arm proficiency for rune arms as a purchasable feat, since we can take greater stances of monks through their purchased feats? My understanding, I recall seeing something on the forums. And this was a while ago now, so of course anything's subject to change. But I think the general idea is we want you to be an arty if you want to use a rune arm.
Yes, I mean
Yeah.
they're yes. As of right now, Arnie, eh, rune arm proficiency is a artificer class feature, and it's one we're unlikely right now to open up to as a general feat.
Right. All right. Let's move to what might be my favorite activated ability in the entire Swashbuckler tree. This is Slap in the Face. It
Yes.
requires a Swashbuckling Style rank 1, Bard level 4, activation cost 10 spell points, 18-second cooldown. While swashbuckling and wielding nothing in your offhand, activate to deal 1 bludgeon damage. Damaged enemies cannot cast spells for 6 seconds and are stunned for 3 seconds. A perform plus d20 saving throw for the stun. So whatever your perform skill is, add a d20 roll, and that's the saving throw of it. 18-second cooldown, cost 10 spell points. So you are literally going up to a mob and slapping them in the face.
Yes. And when you do, they are so shocked that they can't cast spells for a few seconds, and if you're particularly good, you will also just stun them, and then they're not going to be going anywhere for a few seconds.
I can already see this having this ability to, let's say you're targeting the casters at the back of a group of mobs because you need to target the casters first. This is there are many ways you can handle that fight, but this is one way where we can actually prevent them from casting spells in addition to a relatively short duration stun.
Yes.
Also, Low Blow is the one for the buckler. While swashbuckling and wielding a buckler in your offhand, you'll activate to perform a shield bash with +2 critical threat range and multiplier. On a hit, you'll knock down an affected enemy for 3 seconds and get a perform plus d20 saving throw for the knockdown. This basically just allows you to briefly knock down your enemies with your swashbuckler shield, provided your shield bash hits the enemy.
Yes.
Yeah. And, I can already see the Swashbuckler shield in Crystal Cove being a popular one here because of the riposte ability. That's what I've got on me right now.
It's not for no reason that it's named the Swashbuckler. It pairs very nicely with the Swashbuckler enhancement tree.
Right. Next one, Battering Barrage. While swashbuckling, damaging enemies with weapon attacks inflicts destruction. Destruction, or improve destruction once you boost it up. That's a -2 attack rolls, saving throws, right? Something like that. I need to look that one up.
Destruction is a penalty to armor class and fortification.
Right.
So as you stack that up, they're going to become easier to hit and easier to crit. And as we said earlier, as a swashbuckler, you're going to be critting often. So relatively useful, especially on monsters that are generally resistant to critical hits.
All right, up next is Wind at My Back. This requires Bard level 4. It adds 1 to the enhancement bonus of your equipped thrown weapons, plus an additional +1 for every 5 Bard levels. So this is a way to really boost up the enhancement bonus of your throwing weapons if you're a thrown swashbuckler in particular.
Yeah, if you're a pure level 20 Bard, it's +5 to the enhancement bonus of your throwing weapons, and that stacks with the enhancement bonuses you are getting out of the Bard core, or the Swashbuckler core abilities.
All right, so now we're talking. Let's bring out the big guns. This is our Tier 5 enhancements here on the Swashbuckler. Thread the Needle requires the Precision feat, level 12, and be Bard level 5. So this is still within the realm of possibility for 6-level Bard splashes for those interested in that. While swashbuckling, you'll get +5 damage while the precision feat is active. So, again, you're taking precision and using it, and swashbuckling to get a real significant boost to your damage.
Yeah, you're getting all the benefits of having the precision feat and all the good benefits of the power attack feat, which those two things are normally mutually exclusive.
Yep. All right, up next, unfortunately my description is not working here on Coup de
Oh, really?
Oh, no, it is. I just need the toggle. Here we go. It's presumably, here we go, either melee or ranged attack. The melee attack makes an attack with an extra +3 weapon, so make an attack with a lot more damage. This instantly kills enemies that are dancing, dazed, fascinated, mesmerized, paralyzed, petrified, sleeping, stunned, or tripped, unless they succeed a fortitude save, which will be based on a d20 plus your perform skill. So if you're a bard with a really high perform skill, and if you're a pure bard, you probably want that perform skill to be quite high. This is going to be a way to really get yourself a lot of dead enemies quick.
Yeah, bards are extremely good at crowd control, possibly better than anyone else in the game. And this lets them use that to directly kill enemies. So it's a really nice ability that I think a lot of players are going to like.
I will add that it doesn't have a spell point cost and is on a 12-second cooldown. So provided you're able to sort of make this thing work for you, you could really see some real benefits from this fairly regularly.
Definitely.
Yeah. And again, the ranged version does the same thing, but for a ranged attack. All right, Second Skin, +2 to your reflex saving throw and +2 to the max dex bonus of your armor. And that scales up with +2, +4, and +6.
Yep, the max dex bonus of your armor is going to let you get that extra dexterity bonus, plus help in acquiring more dodge. The reflex saves help support, especially if you're a level 20 bard, evasion. So it's a nice ability to have.
All right, finally here on this bard tree, exploit weakness. While swashbuckling, every time you damage an enemy but do not critically hit, you'll get a +1 insight bonus to your critical threat range until you successfully crit. So
Yes.
this is pretty much, yes, you're going to crit, and if you don't crit, well, you're eventually going to crit.
Yeah, this is one possibly my favorite ability in the tree. So if you're swashbuckling and you do need to be, actively swashbuckling, and you're wielding a short sword with a 18 to 20 critical threat range, you run up to the kobold, you hit the kobold, you don't crit. Now your range is 17 to 20. You hit the kobold and don't crit again. Now your range is 16 to 20, and this keeps piling up until you crit, and then all those stacks go away, and your crit range goes back to normal. This helps the swashbuckler crit a lot more often than a lot of other builds.
And, critically hitting will trigger a whole bunch of other things
Yes.
throughout this tree as well.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Someone asked a question in chat. I'm not sure what the answer is on a slap in the face. Did we get that shield, that animation going on that? Is that not here? It's something we wanted to do, but I think we ran into a brief issue on it. So
I'm unsure if we got that change in for 22 launch. If it doesn't end up going into the build that goes live, we will have that in as a bug and targeted for patch.
Yeah, it's something we want to do, but I guess
yes, we definitely
would
like to get it done.
So. All right, so I'm going to just fill out the tree here just to call this done. While I do this, let's see if we have any questions about the swashbuckler tree in particular from our people in our chat. And again, if you are seeing this archive video, for example, you can join us every Wednesday starting at noon Eastern, -4 GMT, and we'd love to see you join us. So I'm just filling out my chart. So. Can you slap party members? I suppose you probably could in a PvP.
In a PvP, yeah. You probably could.
What about light pick bards? I don't.
So
light pick is
yeah,
not,
I mean there's a perception there that light pick is potentially better than a lot of the other weapons you could use as a swashbuckler because light picks start with a ×4 multiplier, unlike the other weapons which go up to a ×3. This is partially counterbalanced by the light pick not getting as much of a critical range benefit from swashbuckling as the other weapons do. In the end, it's up to the player to decide what they want to use.
I'm not quite sure what this question means. Board boat. Can the ranged coup de grace pierce? Does that make any?
I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that question means exactly.
Okay. Sorry about that. Try to clarify if you can, and we'll see about answering it.
Yeah.
Does exploit weakness work on glancing blows? If someone were to use, say, dwarven war axes or bastard swords, for example?
No, and I think this may have gotten answered in the chat, but yes, there aren't any weapons that you can swashbuckle with that deal glancing blows, to my knowledge.
Gotcha. Okay. I guess unless we have another couple of questions here, let's move on over to the single weapon fighting line of feats. So, as we stated earlier, these are mutually exclusive. You do not need to be a swashbuckler to take single weapon fighting, but the swashbuckler tree benefits quite well with single weapon fighting, and anyone else can take it. So let's get started with the single weapon fighting line of feats. Just to put it in context, for the weapon fighting line of feats in DDO, we have 2 weapon fighting, your old, weapon in your left hand, weapon in your right hand. 2-handed fighting, which is the great sword, for example, maul, great axe, fighter type wielding, where you do a lot of glancing blows and AoE damage there. And then single weapon fighting, which is the first time we're bringing this weapon style to DDO. While single weapon fighting, you get plus 10% combat style bonus to your attack speed. Requires fighting with a single one-handed weapon and wielding only a orb, rune arm, or nothing in your offhand. So you do not need the Bard enhancement line to, say, the orb or the rune arm to take advantage of this, but if you do go up the Bard tree and take proficiency with the orb, rune arm, for example, in your offhand, you'll get the benefits of swashbuckling as well while you do that.
Yes.
And the feat requirement is 2 ranks of balance. This is something new for our weapon fighting line of feats. Traditionally, our weapon fighting line of feats have required a certain bonus to a core stat, say strength, dexterity. Uh, but we didn't go that route with single weapon fighting.
No. That was in part because single weapon fighting really can apply to a wide variety of build types. You might be a bard swashbuckler who wants to use charisma for damage, or you could be an artificer who's skewing a little bit more toward intelligence. With the wide variety in there, tried to go for something a little bit more central to a lot of builds.
Yep. All right, and it's at least the initial single weapon fighting bonus is just a straight bonus to your attack speed, and as you mentioned earlier, this actually stacks with the bonus that you would get from the swashbuckler tree itself. Is usable for anyone who wants a boost to their attack speed, which, as
Yes.
any core DDO player will know, attack speed can really make a difference in DDO in terms of your DPS output. So. It requires 2 ranks of balance for single weapon fighting, and you can take that. There's no min level requirement on that,
No,
right?
there's not.
Okay. However, we do start to get one with improved single weapon fighting.
Essentially.
Yep. You need a +6 base attack bonus in order to unlock it. Your single weapon fighting bonus is increased to 20%. A feat bonus to your attack speed. You can also now apply 50% more of your appropriate ability score to your damage instead of just your ability score. So, for example, you'll add 1.5 times your strength as damage, like two-handed fighting. Or, for example, if you're a swashbuckler with a high charisma and with the bonus to use your charisma for damage, you'll get 50% more of that bonus to your damage. So let's say, for example, you have a 12 strength that gets you plus. Well, actually, I guess let's say 14 strength that gets you a +2. This will add an extra +1 to that on all your basic damage rolls. It requires 4 ranks of balance and base attack bonus 6, and single weapon fighting.
Right.
We have greater single weapon fighting. This requires base attack bonus +11 and 7 ranks in balance. It's increased to 30% feat bonus to attack speed and 100% more of your appropriate ability score to your damage. So you're essentially doubling your damage bonus from your core stat.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is very strong.
Now, this is something you get still in the heroic levels, but fairly high up there. And then finally, we have. Hopefully, I took it. I don't know, maybe I didn't take it. We have a perfect single weapon fighting as well.
Yes. Perfect single weapon fighting is a epic feat you can take at the same time as the perfect two weapon and perfect two handed fighting feats. If I recall correctly, the benefit from that is normally where on an attack you would vorpal by rolling a 20, you can now vorpal on a 19 to 20.
Right. I actually have well, the Update 22 release notes in front of me here. While single weapon fighting, your Vorpal threat range is increased by +1. Instead of scoring Vorpal hits only on a roll of 20, you score them on a 19 to 20,
Yes.
assuming you confirm the critical hit. And this does require that you earn a maximum experience for a number of destinies in this feat's related sphere, which is martial. So basically, you have got to have maxed out the XP in one of your martial epic destinies in order to qualify for this.
Mm-hmm.
And there's our single weapon fighting lines of feats and the swashbuckler enhancement. Pretty nice stuff there. I have to congratulate you on a job well done. Let's take a look at our chat room. Do we have any
All right.
more questions in chat? We have a few minutes here to answer things before we wrap up our show. Someone had mentioned. Oh, here we go. Keldar, I'll just answer that now. When does Lamania reopen? Very soon. It's going to be, assuming everything goes as planned, within the next couple of days here, and we'll have an announcement on the Lamania forums and probably our social networks as well when Lamania gets open. But we're working on a build, if I recall, actually right now for the next Lamania update.
Mm-hmm.
So assuming that goes through and gets approved and doesn't run into any issues, we should get Lamania updated within the next day or two.
Princess Spiker wanted to ask, is there an easy way to tell which enhancements do not require you to be swashbuckling? The general rule in here is if an enhancement in the swashbuckler tree requires you to be swashbuckling, it will specifically say, while swashbuckling, you get X, Y, or Z.
Right. Right.
And if it does not say that, then you generally don't need to be swashbuckling.
We did mention this earlier, Casimir, but you mentioned that on an earlier Lamania build, you could benefit from these feats while in an animal form as a druid. That is not correct. That is bugged on that earlier version of Lamania, and you should not be able to do that. Sorry. When will the update go live? Soon. At this point, all we're saying in terms of an exact release date is June. Once we have a more specific time frame that we're ready to let you guys know, we will do that. But it'll be here soon. In the month of June is our goal. Let's see. Why are there not low-level orbs? Can we get one, please? Okay. We'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, we do know that orbs being a relatively recent addition to the game, there are not too many in the low levels, partially because we've done mostly high-level packs since then. In the future, if we were to do any more low-level packs, we'd almost certainly include some orbs to help fill out some of that space.
Lodger 5 asked a question that I know some of our folks have expressed an interest in, and unfortunately I may have some bad news for you. The answer for that is, let me get back to my chat. Where did I see that? Oh, there is a two-handed light sickle called Shining Crescents.
Right.
How does that work? Shining Crescents does currently work on our version of Update 22 that we currently have, but that is bugged. So do not expect to be able to get your bonus for that in the long term. This is something that we are going to fix in a future update.
Despite being a sickle, it is technically a two-handed weapon, and therefore does not work with single weapon fighting or swashbuckling.
Yep, absolutely.
Should not, anyway.
Yep. Let's see. No swashbuckling bears? Well, not while they're in bear form. What about more named bucklers? I know we do have a couple of new named bucklers in Update 22. Do we have plans to perhaps expand that as well?
We do. We definitely intend to support more bucklers in upcoming future updates. As for a pass to add more to previous content, that it could potentially happen in the future, but no immediate plans for that, no.
And on that same line, I do not believe we have plans for randomly generated orbs. They will remain in the named item field for now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Will Bastard Swords ever get the bonuses from single weapon fighting?
Bastard Swords do get the bonuses from single weapon fighting. Swashbuckling, you cannot swashbuckle from the Swashbuckler Bard enhancement tree with a Bastard Sword, but single weapon fighting only requires that you have a single melee weapon in your main hand and meet the requirements in your offhand. So for instance, an Artificer with a Rune Arm and Bastard Sword would get the benefits of the single weapon fighting line of feats, yes.
Just to answer this question, because I know it might come up, I don't believe you can. They're mutually exclusive, right, in terms of two-handed fighting and single-weapon fighting?
Yes. With Update 22 launch, the single weapon fighting line of feats and the two-handed fighting line of feats will be mutually exclusive.
Yep. It would be really, really, really powerful over Vaughn, and I think that's why it's not allowed. Sorry. I love my Bastard Swords. When I first heard that, I was like, ooh, let me stack that all together, huh? Nope, but can't do that. All right, I think we're going to wrap up the show here, unless we get another couple of questions. I really do appreciate everyone watching. Again, this is all arriving with Update 22, Pirates of the Thunder Sea, which is going to be hitting real soon to the DDO live servers, targeting the month of June. Thanks very much, Steelstar, for taking the time out of your lunch to join us and really go through this Swashbuckler tree and single weapon fighting line of feats.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for listening.
And thanks everyone in chat for joining us as well. We hope to see you next Wednesday on our Weekly Wednesday Lunchtime Livestream. Don't forget to follow us on twitch.tv/DDOstream to be notified when we are going live. We also do let people know when we are streaming live on our social networks, so follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Google+. We also make a post in the DDO forums as well when we're going live, so you can find out all about that stuff. And later on in the day here, we're going to have the archived version of this video up on both Twitch and our YouTube page, which is youtube.com/Dungeons and Dragons, not the ampersand, the spelled out word, all one word, Dungeons and Dragons. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.
See ya.